The Assembly approves a bill calling for a standing special counsel to investigate President Yoon over the martial law incident, of which some 24 ruling party members voted in favor. Also at today's plenary session, next year's budget was fixed as some 673 trillion won, as unilaterally downsized by the opposition. As investigations pick up speed, the prosecution looks to be edging a step closer to specifying the president as someone ultimately in charge of the recent military ruling incident. Over in Sweden, an award ceremony will be taking place in the coming hours for this year's Nobel laureates, among whom is the Korean author Arirang in literature. It's December 10th, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. The National Assembly today passed an opposition-led bill to appoint a special counsel to investigate the president and his aides on charges of insurrection. Also approved was a downside budget bill for 2025. Our political correspondent Lee Si-hoo begins our coverage.
An opposition-led bill to appoint a standing special counsel to investigate President Yoon and his close aides over the December 3rd declaration of martial law and instigation of an insurrection was passed by a National Assembly plenary session on Tuesday. Of the 287 lawmakers present for the session, 210 voted for, 63 against, while 14 abstained. The bill seeks to start an investigation into the president and his aides, including the just resigned former Minister of Defense Kim Yong-hyun, former ruling party floor leader Chu Kyung-ho, and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo over their responsibility in allegedly violating the Constitution when declaring martial law. The president does not have the right to veto a standing counsel, but the council can only launch an investigation once the president has appointed members of their team. There are also restrictions on the investigation period and organization of the special counsel team. To offset such limits, the opposition plans to put to a vote a separate special prosecutor's bill, a more comprehensive regular special counsel, on Saturday, as they make a second attempt to impeach President Yoon. A downsized 2025 budget bill put forward by the DP was also passed by the Assembly, 183 to 94, with one abstention. This is the first approval of a budget unilaterally finalized by the opposition. The DP bill sets next year's budget at 673.3 trillion won, down 4.1 trillion from the government's initial proposal. The cuts are mainly to the government's reserve fund and special activity expenses at the presidential office, the National Security Office, the prosecution, and the police. The PPP, which attempted to negotiate the budget right up until the vote, denounced the outcome, saying the DP was hindering government affairs that deal with the people's livelihoods to achieve its own political goals. The government, which also put in efforts to negotiate with the opposition, said it regrets the outcome, but added that it will try its best to work with it. At Tuesday's session, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo on behalf of the government addressed the parliament and vowed the government would prepare to execute the budget beginning early next year to ease economic uncertainties in the country. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
Staying with the brief military ruling incident, the prosecution has insinuated that the president is the leader in the scheme by identifying the former defense minister as one of the key figures. Our Choi Min-jung explains.
It appears highly likely that the prosecution sees President Yoon as being chiefly behind the alleged insurrection on December 3rd. On Monday, the prosecution requested an arrest warrant for former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun, alleged to have engaged in important duties related to insurrection. Under South Korean law, individuals involved in acts of insurrection are classified under three main categories as ringleaders, key participants in critical roles, or mere participants. Identifying Kim as not being the ringleader effectively suggests that President Yoon is in the eyes of the prosecution. However, the prosecution did not explicitly name President Yoon in its arrest warrant. Meanwhile, former Defense Minister Kim waived his court hearing scheduled on Tuesday, deciding not to attend. In a statement, Kim said that he deeply apologizes for causing inconvenience to the people and added to pray for the future of a free South Korea, saying that he would give up on the review of arrest warrants. Prosecutors at the Seoul Central District Court will determine as early as late Tuesday night whether Kim is to be arrested. The prosecution's special investigative team had issued an arrest warrant for Kim, stating that his charges include colluding with treason and abuse of power over his alleged role in President Yoon's brief declaration of martial law. In case the court rejects the prosecution's request, the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials also filed for an arrest warrant against Kim on Tuesday as part of its own probe. The police also announced on Tuesday that it had summoned 11 participants of the cabinet meeting where last week's martial law was deliberated. The individuals summoned include Prime Minister Han Dok-soo and National Intelligence Service Director Cho Tae-yong. The police have notified Prime Minister Han, who has been accused of insurrection, to appear for questioning as a suspect. Meanwhile, the prosecution, police, and the CIO, the three main investigative agencies leading the probe, have expressed optimism to join forces for the investigation amid concerns over overlap and confusion in the search for truth. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Now, eyes are on what comes next, as it seems the president's grip on power is loosening. The deeply troubled cabinet says it'll put every effort into ensuring that the country remains stable. Our Kim Do-yeon has this report.
It's been more than 3 full days since President Yoon Suk-yeol last came out to the public. He has also put the Prime Minister in charge of the government since. But this is not an official, legitimate method for the country to be run, as a president can't voluntarily transfer power to someone else without a resignation. And as this isolation prolongs, Yoon will inevitably lose grip over the government. An early end to his term, which is currently set to run until May of 2027, is inevitable, but how is the question that looms. An impeachment, while voted down last Saturday, will keep being an option, as the main opposition Democratic Party of Korea said it will continue to push for one until it passes. Only 8 votes from the ruling party are required for this to happen, and public pressure could be too much for the PPP to bear. On the flip side, this will give them up to 180 days for the Constitutional Court to approve the impeachment before the snap presidential election campaign starts, giving them some time to prepare. On the other hand, while a resignation by President Yoon may provide better optics to the public, it would mean a presidential election within just 60 days. Some have also called for an amendment to the Constitution to shorten a president's term, but that requires discussions at the National Assembly and ultimately a nationwide referendum. This is a process no one can guess the time for, but it would be long. Another unprecedented situation is the detaining of President Yoon. It is not still clear to anyone whether that would meet the constitutional criteria to make the Prime Minister the acting president. Meanwhile, at the first cabinet meeting since the martial law situation on Tuesday, Prime Minister Han Dok-soo said every effort will be made to stabilize governmental operations early.
I, along with the entire cabinet, will spare no effort to ensure that the functions of the state remain stable under every circumstance and that there is no void in the governance of our nation. I urge all public officials to approach their duties with an extraordinary sense of determination and fulfill their responsibilities to the fullest.
In addition, he told the cabinet to utilize overseas diplomatic posts and foreign media to assure the rest of the world that the South Korean government was functioning normally and with consistency despite the political situation. Also, the Minister of Culture, Sports and Tourism, Yoo In-chun, as a spokesperson for the cabinet, held a briefing calling for the public support in tough times while criticizing the main opposition for impeaching the Justice Minister and the Commissioner General of the police agency. He pleaded to the main opposition, requesting them to be reserved and show wisdom amid hard times for the government. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The U.S. hopes the political strife in South Korea will be settled peacefully and in accordance with the rule of law. In a press briefing on Monday, State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller also reaffirmed the strength of the alliance between Seoul and Washington, adding that all channels of communication remain open. In response to questions about whom the U.S. government regards as President Joe Biden's counterpart in South Korea, he replied, President Yoon is the president of Korea. Over in Sweden, Korean author Han Gang will be awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature today. To tell us more, joining us live from Stockholm is our culture correspondent, Song Yujin. Yujin, the celebrations are just a few hours away.
You're definitely right, Jongmin. So we're less than 4 hours away until this year's Nobel Week highlight, which is the Nobel Prize award ceremony, begins. And the award ceremony will take place at the Stockholm Concert Hall, this big blue building that you're seeing behind me. And this is where Korean author Han Gang will be making history as the first Korean laureate in literature, as well as the first Asian female to receive this honor. But before all these celebrations begin, I'll first give you a quick walkthrough on what to expect tonight. It's time to celebrate achievements and innovations. Today, December 10th, is Nobel Day, when this year's Nobel Prizes are awarded to the winners. Here's a preview of the big day. This is a Stockholm concert hall where the Nobel Prize award ceremony will begin at 4 p.m. local time. Each laureate will be honored with a presentation speech before receiving a diploma and a medal presented by Sweden's King Carl Gustaf. Korean author Han Gang, this year's Nobel laureate in literature, will take the stage fourth following the awards in physics, chemistry, and physiology or medicine. After the award ceremony will be the Nobel Prize banquet. Sometimes described as the world's most secretive dinner, the menu is kept tightly under wraps until the event begins. But here's a small hint from this year's chefs: porridge and apples.
In Sweden, we have a culture of produced grains, and I think it's really because it has a lot to do with tradition to serve porridge, and also the barley is hydrothermal treated, so the body can optimize more of the nutrition.
So the apple for me is a great symbol for knowledge and innovation. So it feels good to actually work with the apple for this kind of people. So it feels like it also symbolizes them in a way. And also we have had an amazing apple year this year in Sweden.
About 1,300 distinguished guests, including the laureates, the Swedish royal family, and government officials, will gather at Stockholm City Hall. The highlight of the evening will be the speeches of thanks delivered by one laureate from each category. Leading up to Nobel Day, Han Gang has had a busy Nobel week. She began with a visit to the Nobel Prize Museum, where she donated a teacup and a handwritten note detailing a routine while working on her latest book, We Do Not Part.
Step number 1, she would wake up at 5:30 every morning. She did not always succeed. Step 2 was she needed to take a walk every single day. And the third was to have a cup of tea from this teacup. And then afterwards she would look into the swirl, and that became her universe when she wrote the book.
Han's presence extends beyond the museum. She is also celebrated at the Nobel Week Lights Festival. The author is featured in 2 light installations, Leading Lights and De Auditon, which shine a spotlight on female laureates.
Her writing is it's poetic and also very social realism in a way, and that is really like a kind of inspiration for me in this artwork as well, to have something that is in a way magical, but also like focusing on human beings here and now.
In just a few hours, the stage will light up with laureates, including Han, whose contributions inspire a brighter, more innovative future for us all.
Right, so the countdown has begun. Yujin, is there anything specific we should watch out for during the event?
There is. So eyes are on the presentation speech for Hangang because traditionally the presentation speech for literature laureates are delivered in Swedish, but at the very end when the presenter invites the laureate to receive the honor, it's either spoken in the author's mother tongue, which is in case Korean, or English. So many people are very looking forward to hearing Korean spoken during this event. And the speech will be delivered by author Ellen Mattsson, who is also a member of the Swedish Academy and the Nobel Committee for Literature. And as for the Literature Award ceremony specifically, it is set to begin at around 4:42 p.m. local time, which will be 12:42 a.m. Wednesday, Korea time.
How about the banquet that follows the ceremony?
Well, I can definitely say that the highlight of the banquet will be the speeches of thanks that will be delivered by one laureate per category, which of course includes Hangang. Han will deliver her speech fourth, just like as she'll receive her Nobel Prize fourth in the award ceremony. But all in all, Jongmin, I think that tonight will be a very long evening of celebrations as the banquet will end at 11 p.m., but it will continue with dancing at the Stockholm City Hall's Golden Hall. And before I go, I just want to give our viewers a quick reminder to tune into Arirang's special live coverage of this year's Nobel Prize Award ceremony that will begin at 11:50 p.m. Korea time tonight. Back to you, Jungmin.
Looking forward to it. Eugene, thank you for the preview. That was our culture correspondent Song Yujin reporting live from Stockholm. Back in Korea, officials in charge of economic matters are actively working to address market concerns about the implications of Korea's political predicament. Our correspondent Moon Hae-ryun covers their efforts.
With growing uncertainty following the dismissal of President Yoon's impeachment motion, financial authorities are working to ease public and market sentiment. On Tuesday, Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok stated during a meeting with other finance chiefs that the government is prepared to address the rising market volatility and has sufficient resources to do so. He also emphasized that despite the current political instability, the underlying foundations of South Korea's economy remain solid. During a cabinet meeting on the same day, relevant financial ministries and agencies were urged to communicate the government's efforts and the strong foundations of the economy to international organizations to prevent any impact on external credibility. Efforts to coordinate emergency economic cooperation between the ruling and opposition parties are also underway, with Finance Minister Choi mentioning that the government would actively participate if such a body is formed. The Financial Services Commission also held a meeting on Tuesday to review the impact of the recent surge in the Korean won-US dollar exchange rate on the stability, liquidity, and overall health of banks. The meeting involved CFOs of major financial groups and institutions, including banks, security firms, credit card companies, and insurance firms. The South Korean currency has shown some volatility as it dropped sharply against the dollar for the exchange rate to hit a 2-year high, but leveled out on Tuesday as it closed at 1,426 won against the dollar, some 10.1 won lower than the previous day. On the stock market front, the benchmark KOSPI and tech-heavy KOSDAQ also showed signs of stabilizing after experiencing significant fluctuations since the short-lived martial law declaration. The KOSPI recovered past the 2,410 mark on Tuesday as it closed at 2,417, driven by foreign investors who found value in the market's recent sell-off and investigations into the martial law order made headway, while the KOSDAQ closed at 661.59, jumping by 5.52%. This comes as foreign investors sold off over 7 trillion won in financial stocks from December 4th, the morning following President Yoon's failed martial law order to last Friday. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
In the Middle East, a new government is taking shape in Syria as rebel forces take over power from the al-Assad administration. Lee Seung-jae has more.
A transfer of power is in the works in Syria after Bashar al-Assad fled the country following a successful takeover by a rebel group on Sunday. According to Reuters, the outgoing Syrian Prime Minister Mohammed Jalali agreed to transfer the power to the Salvation Government. The Salvation Government is an administration based in a small region of rebel-held territory in northwest Syria. While the handover could take days to finalize, the transitional authority would be led by Mohammed al-Bashir, who previously led the Salvation Government. Amid the collapse of the al-Assad regime and the start of a rebel administration, Washington wants to ensure that ISIS does not get a fresh start in the country and take control of Syria. According to U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan over the weekend, the U.S.'s top priority now is to ensure that ISIS does not receive new oxygen, adding that Washington will take steps by working with the Syrian Democratic Forces. Meanwhile, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, said Monday that the former Syrian leader who escaped before the rebel takeover should be held accountable for various human rights violations committed during his rule. He added that not just al-Assad, but all those involved in human rights crimes during his rule should also be held accountable. Al-Assad in 2011 cracked down on anti-government protesters by ordering authorities to fire at the crowd. He's also accused of using chemical weapons against protesters. European countries are also putting asylum applications for Syrian refugees on hold until further notice. This includes countries like Austria, the UK, Germany, Sweden, and Norway, who announced Monday that they were suspending their application process after the ousting of al-Assad. Germany has the largest Syrian community in Europe with nearly 1 million. It opened its doors to a wave of Syrian refugees in 2015 during the height of the civil war. It also saw over 72,000 applications from Syrians being submitted this year alone. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Squid Game Season 2 has secured a Golden Globe nomination. This Netflix drama hits the small screen on December 26th, but the voting body of the Golden Globes was reportedly provided with an early screening opportunity, which led to the nomination of this latest series in the Best Drama category. This manner of nomination is not unusual, according to American entertainment magazine The Hollywood Reporter. The 82nd Golden Globe Awards will be held on January 5th. On the K-pop front, a duet by BTS member V and singer Park Hyo-shin has stepped into the Billboard Hot 100 chart. The song, titled Winter Ahead, was released on November 29th and has charted at 99th place on the Billboard Hot 100 for the week of December 14th. In addition, the 2020 BTS hit Dynamite has surpassed 1.9 billion views on YouTube. According to its agency, this is the first time a BTS music video has hit this number of views. Badminton player An Se-young has been honored as Female Player of the Year by the Badminton World Federation for the second year in a row. The 22-year-old player clinched gold in the women's singles tournament at the Paris Olympics this year, bringing home Korea's first gold medal in this event in 28 years, following the Atlanta Olympics in 1996. And following the Summer Games in Paris, France, actually, An also won the women's singles title at the China Masters in Shenzhen.
Today's highs were similar to or slightly higher than yesterday's. The temperature in Seoul rose up to 7 degrees Celsius, which is at the level of previous years. Until the second half of the week, typically early winter cold will continue. In the meantime, the weather is drying up in areas towards the east coast, and dry weather advisories are still in place. Dry weather warnings have also been issued for the eastern parts of Gangwon-do province, such as Gangneung. With strong winds, please take extra precautions to prevent any wildfires. Tomorrow, Seoul and Gyeongju will start off at 0 degrees, Busan 4 degrees. Daytime temperatures will move up to 6 in Seoul, Gyeongju 10 degrees. More rain or snow are expected in East Coast areas due to the influence easterly winds between tomorrow afternoon and dawn Thursday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.